In today's video, I'm going to be installing a 2x4 wall behind the roll-up door in my step-bang conversion. I've begun by cutting out a bottom plate, and I've just put on some construction adhesive here, and then I will screw through that directly into this board here. Okay, so the bottom plate is screwed and glued down, and this gives us a good visualization of where this wall will be. I've put it so far back so that I've got access to this area here almost like a workbench. It's at the perfect height and I'll be able to use it for whatever I want, and then also storage for things like propane outside the vehicle. So I'm just putting holes to secure these side posts in here, and I put one right down there at the bottom, and one of these will go right through it. Okay, so this little hole right here is the one that I just drilled, and this bolt is going to go straight through, like that. I've put a big glob of silicone around the head of the carriage bolt that's going to secure that stud to the wall, so that when it's pushed in place, it'll sort of spill out around the edges. Okay, so I've tightened the bolt from the other side, and now I can just smooth out the silicone. Okay, I've now got the other side in, and a top beam has just been put in place here. It's just held in place with friction for the moment, and that's so that I can do a test with the door to see if I've got this at the right height. Basically, the door needs to be able to move freely on top of this plate. So I need some way of securing the top plate down to the stud. So what I'm going to try and use is a pocket jig to screw it in on an angle from the bottom here. It's certainly not very pretty because I couldn't clamp the pocket jig down, but it's working. So it was a little bit premature of me to think that I could get that whole wall done, even all of the framing done. So basically I've just got those 4 studs in right now, and I'm waiting to finish making the window, and then I need to make a door that's at least 40 inches wide and is short enough to fit in the van so that I can get the motorcycle in from that back entrance. So I'm not going to do the rough openings or anything like that until I've actually got those finished. So that's going to take a long time. So I figured what I'd do instead is I'd work on some of the interior paneling and interior walls. So what I have behind me is the plywood wall that basically hides the pocket door. And I need to finish basically putting up that sheathing so I can finish that wall with something nicer than plywood. So this here is the wall that I was talking about that has the pocket door right over here. And I've just cut off this piece here that will slot in around everything here, and that will finish off that wall. So this is that bit of sheathing put in place. I just need to screw it in, and then this will be ready to accept paneling. So the pine panels which I bought have a bunch of holes in them. Basically anywhere there's a knot, there's a hole. And I don't really feel like looking at reflective vapor barrier when I look through them. So this is the good side, this is the back side. And I've got all of these really thin bits of wood left over from making windows. So they're just like super thin, and I can glue them back here so that when you look through from the good side, it'll just look like there's more wood at the back. This board here is a particularly naughty one, and I've had to patch 6 different holes in it. That's what it looks like from this side, and from the other. Well, from the other I think it looks pretty good. So this board here is the first bit of pine paneling to go up on the walls. And I've positioned it, and it might not show up here very well on the camera, but basically so it goes right to the bottom of this metal track here, and this is what the door slides into. So it's going to go right up close to that. Now, it's very thin board, so it gives a lot. I've added 2 non-structural spacing studs. Basically this here, it's not really screwed into anything, there's just foam back there, and I stapled it here so that it connects up with the more structural ones, and then there's construction adhesive behind it, but it's really just gripping onto the vapor barrier, so it's just a spacer. It's not going to have anything screwed into it, but basically it's going to make this wall a lot more solid. Second panel is up and aligned. I've added another row of ceiling boards here. I held back from doing that because I wanted to see how far the wall went up and just exactly what it looked like once the paneling was up. But it looks like the best way to do this is to put the extra ceiling board up and then just cut a little bit of these boards here and put it right up against there. That's probably the best way to do it. So I've added dots of construction adhesive onto the studs. This will hopefully give me a better bond to the paneling. I've come to the point where the first electrical appliance needs to enter. There's only one on this wall, which is why I started with it. But this is for the under cabinet lighting that's going to go above the desk. So I've just drilled a hole here that goes back into the insulation so that I can insert a switch. So it took a while, but I finally got this switch here installed on the bottom of the 5th panel. And I've just made this little faux copper plate there to go over it. And once the bottom half of that is in place, I will secure that down. So here's that switch fully installed. Basically, it's just for this wire, which will be hooked up to the LED strip lights, and I have tested to make sure that the connection is working well for the switch. So this is how much that covers. This is one full package, 6 boards, fully installed. So this is just another progress update. It's coming along very, very well. I'm almost down to the wheel well. So I've just run wires through here because this is where there's going to be a USB and cigarette lighter outlet. But neither of those parts have arrived yet. I bought them from eBay instead of Amazon, so they're going to take a long time. So for now, it's just going to be a wire sticking through a hole, and that's directly underneath of where the switch for the light is. Okay, so I've made it right to the top of the wheel well. Now there is a little gap there, but there's going to be wood that goes on top of here, and actually there'll be an air gap. So the wheel well will probably come up to about halfway up this board when it's completed, but I'm just very happy with how perfectly that lined up there. So now I just need to cut some boards to size and go down the back there. It's a bit messy down here right now, but I did have to notch the bottom board there to go around the AC plug, which comes into the van. So when I do my baseboard, that will have to be the height of it. So I've completed the paneling on this side of the wall so far. There are some gaps that need filling, however. That gap there up at the front, I need to connect the wall and the ceiling somehow. I need to put a baseboard piece of trim down. And then above the bed area needs paneling.